Armies conquer with guns. Empires rises with armies. But today in the modern world, nations can be conquered by something far more quieter. Debt. From Great Depression to China's Belt and Road Initiative, loans have not just been used to build economies, they are also used to control them. And today, when India rethinks its relationship with China in the shadow of US tariffs, this story matters much more than ever. Hi everyone, this is Deb This Side, and on this channel, we discover how geopolitics, history, and economics shape the world we live in. Today, we are going to discuss something very important, something which silently controls the world we live in, the debt trap. It is about how loans reshape economies, change governments, and also decide who wins the influence on the global stage. At the end of this video, you'll have an understanding why knowing about debt trap is not just about understanding faraway countries, but about India's economy too. तो चलिए डेट ट्रैप की इसी डिप्लोमेसी को आज समझते हैं देव दिस साइड के इस एपिसोड में. But boss, in order to understand debt trap, चलिए कुछ cases discuss करते हैं on this. पहला, the Great Depression. Let's go back to 1929. The entire world looked prosperous, but behind the glitters, Europe was drowning in debt. Germany owed billions in war reparations, and in order to repay that, it had to take millions and billions of loans from American banks. Britain and France were on US credit line too. But when Wall Street crashed, the entire house of cards collapsed. Germany defaulted, unemployment soared, and desperation grew. And in that desperation, an extremist voice took audience. Adolf Hitler rose promising to break free from debt slavery. But what's the lesson? Debt didn't just cause poverty, but it caused the biggest war in human history, the World War II. A clear reminder that when nations are in debt, the geopolitics itself changes. Dusra, the IMF and the World Bank era. Fast forward to 1980s, the oil prices has already spiked. Inflation was out of control, and then multiple countries in Latin America and Africa couldn't repay their loans. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank came to their rescue. But then this rescue has got their own conditions. Structural adjustment programs. The governments were asked to cut subsidies, slash public funding, and then privatize industries. Yes, the budgets rebalanced. But then in countries like Brazil, Zambia, Mexico, the ordinary people paid the price. What happened was disastrous. Soaring unemployment, collapsed education, and reduced healthcare. Debt had become just a new form of colonialism. No armies, just economic policies. तीसरा and सबसे नया, China and the new debt trap. Now there's a new player in the block, China. In 2013, China launched their Belt and Road Initiative, which promises to create roads, railways, ports across Asia, Africa and beyond. अगर आपको BRI या Belt and Road Initiative के बारे में in detail जानना है तो here's the link. But let's talk Sri Lanka for a moment. The Hambantota port, which was built by taking Chinese loans in Sri Lanka, was supposed to be a gateway of trade. But when Sri Lanka couldn't repay the loans, it has to lease it down to China for 99 years. Or take Laos for the moment. A single railway connecting it to China has put half of the country's national debt linked to Beijing. For China, these are not just infrastructure development. These are long-term levers of influence. And debt is becoming Beijing's silent army. Chautha, Africa and Pakistan. Let's look into more of these Chinese loans. Take Africa for example, where the pattern is very clear. Kenya built a standard gauge railway, but when this railway was unable to produce revenue, it put Kenya in huge loan to China. Similarly, in Ethiopia, massive Chinese funded dams were built to generate hydroelectricity. But it also put Addis Ababa on Beijing's grace. In fact, according to a report of Guardian, in 2025, the poorest of 75 nations owes $22 billion to China as loan repayment. And then there is Pakistan, the prodigal child of China's debt trap diplomacy. The China Pakistan Economic Corridor or CPEC brought in $60 billion of investments. Roads, parklands, the Gwadar port, all meant to transform Pakistan. But instead, today Pakistan faces one of the worst financial crises. Inflation has crushed families. IMF bailout keeps them afloat. And all of these loans, or majority of these loan burdens to Pakistan, are Chinese. If you ask me, China is not just trapping countries, it is tempting them. जरा सोचो, अगर आपके पास सिर्फ 500 रुपए होंगे, you will think or spend carefully. You will think of lesser purchases, you will delay your plans. But suddenly if you get 2000 rupees, आपके आंखें बड़ी हो जाएंगी. You will suddenly dream bigger. You will think of bigger purchases and suddenly you will increase your spend. That's what happens to countries. Chinese loans arrive quickly, big amount, and also without years of negotiation. Suddenly, the government starts dreaming of mega highways, ports, airports, infrastructure development, mega cities, and whatnot. They expand faster than their ability to repay, and when the bill comes due, they are stuck. But why do we Indians need to know about this? हम उनके दोस्त नहीं हैं, but what if we are becoming? Right now, because of these US tariffs, India is reconsidering its approach on how to deal with China and possibly towards closer trade ties. On one hand, cheap Chinese money and goods look attractive. But on the other hand, we have seen how these cheap loans can turn into long-term dependence. If Asians and African nations can lose their ports and policies, India should be doubly cautious about it. Because for us, it's not just about trade, it's about strategic independence. It's about how do we stand on our own feet without falling into debt trap of others. Some argue that this debt trap narrative is overblown. Sri Lanka's biggest creditors were not even Chinese. And multiple countries take these Chinese loans because they are much cheaper, faster, and are much flexible than the World Bank and IMF. So, is this really a trap? Or just governments are dreaming too big too fast? But we all need to understand, from the Great Depression to IMF austerity to China's Belt and Road, loans have never been just about numbers. It's about power, it's about leverage, it's about way of controlling nations without a single soldier even crossing a border. For India, this lesson is very urgent. And as we navigate through global trade wars and reconsider our relationship with China, we must, and I repeat, we must be very careful about this. So guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the content, and if you found value in this, please do subscribe to the channel because we are going to break geopolitics and economics down in a way that makes sense for all of us. See you in the next one. Till then, stay happy, stay diplomatic. This is Deb This Side signing off. Peace.